What's up, YouTube? Back with another Sunday commentary. And today I asked the question, will we ever see another basketball game? Probably yeah, but will we see one in the foreseeable future? I don't know. It's pretty unlikely. And people always saying there needs to be another basketball game. We need more variety. 2K is getting lazy. They need some competition. And all that's true, but at the end of the day, 2K is so far ahead of everyone else. It's at a point where I don't even know if anyone else would attempt to make a basketball game that can compete with 2K. And there's two major reasons behind that. Number one is actually developing and making the game. I don't know how many development studios will be willing to put forth the time and effort needed to make a game like that. And on top of that, I don't know how many developers or studios have experience making a basketball game of that scale. And then you look at another reason, which is probably the main reason, is financially. I don't see too many publishers that are willing to give a development studio the money and resources that they would need in order to make a game like that. Because not only do you have to pay to actually make the game, you got to pay the developers and the programmers and the designers and all the other people that are involved in making the game. You got to pay for marketing, and this is stuff that you would pay for all games. But something that's really important for a basketball game is the NBA license. And yeah, you can technically make a game without the NBA license. You just won't have NBA players and teams and logos and stuff like that in it, so it wouldn't sell well. And 2K themselves actually did that with Off Pro Football 2K8, because by this time EA had exclusive rights to Madden, so no other company could make a simulation football game. So 2K made a football game, they just couldn't use actual NFL players and logos and teams and likenesses and everything. So it was just like a lot of generic players, and they did have legends that had already retired, because I guess you could just get their rights individually, but the game just didn't sell well. Even though gameplay wise it was actually pretty good, but without that NFL license the game didn't sell. And so if there's going to be another basketball game to come out, they're gonna have to have the NBA license. The thing is, the NBA license is expensive. A couple years ago, I think during 2K19, 2K, I guess Take-Two Interactive, because that's the company that owns 2K, Take-Two got a deal with the NBA, and the deal was 7 years, $1.1 billion just for the NBA license. It's not an exclusive deal or anything, so any other company could get a deal with the NBA, but Take-Two Interactive is paying $157 million a year just for the NBA license. Now, if another publisher decides to get the NBA license, I don't think they will be paying that much, because later on in the article it did say the NBA usually charges like 10 to 15% of the game's revenue. But still, 15% of the revenue, it might not sound like a lot, but it is definitely something to think about. And when you're talking about tens of millions, even getting into the hundreds of millions of dollars, like that really adds up. And so when you look at all of the publishers that can actually make it happen financially, most of them still wouldn't want to do it. And so you look at Take-Two Interactive, they already own 2K, so they already own the best basketball game out there. They don't really need to make another one. They also own Rockstar, which makes Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, so they got their money makers. You look at EA, they own DICE, which makes Battlefield, that makes them some money. They own Respawn Entertainment, which makes Apex Legends. They own EA Sports, which makes Madden. And they also have experience making sports games. They used to make NBA Live, but even they fell far too behind 2K. And on top of that, EA is a horrible company. Like, we must be down horrendously bad if we're hoping EA can be our saviors. And we not down that bad. Like, we down bad a little bit, but we not down bad to the point where we're hoping EA can come save us. Then you look at Activision, they own Infinity Ward, Treyarch, and Sledgehammer, which makes Call of Duty, and a whole bunch of other companies, but they're also a very horrible company, and they're in the process of being purchased by Microsoft, so they got a lot going on over there. And speaking of Microsoft, they used to own the studio that made NBA games way back in the early 2000s. They made NBA Inside Drive. They also made NFL Fever. This is way back when the original Xbox first came out, but they haven't had, I don't think they've had a studio to make a basketball game since then. And on top of that, they too also have a lot of things going on, so I don't even really think they care too much about the NBA video game market. Then you got Sony. They own San Diego Studios, which makes MLB The Show, and they used to make the NBA series, it was literally just called NBA 07, NBA 08, NBA 09. They made those games, but they eventually stopped making them. Nintendo has money, but again, I don't even think they really care too much about the NBA video game space. And so yeah, when you think about it financially, there's not really a lot of studios that would probably be willing to put forth the money needed to make a game like this. And then there's not really a lot of development studios that have experience doing it. And I guess any small independent studio could start making the game and then crowdfund it to get the money that they would need. But who knows how that's going to turn out. But let's say money isn't a factor anymore and you're just looking at it from a development standpoint. Making games are already hard, but making a game that's on par with 2K is even harder, especially because you're basically going to be starting from scratch. There's not really a lot of assets out there that you can use to help you. Like 2K isn't going to let you use their engine to make a product that can compete with theirs, even if you pay for it. That's not gonna happen. Then you look at other gaming engines out there. You have like the Unreal Engine, which is made by Epic Games. So Epic Games, they make a lot of money from Fortnite, but they also make a lot of money from their game engine. They let developers use their engine, and then once they make the game and start selling it, they start taking royalties. I'm not even sure if you could make a basketball game from the Unreal Engine. You probably can. You could probably make anything you want, but this goes back to finances as well. So on top of everything you already have to pay for to make the game, the NBA license, now you're paying for an engine. Or you could make the engine yourself, which is not something that you can just do. Like that takes a very long time and it's pretty complicated, and it'll add to your development time. And so it'll probably take like 5 years to make the game, and then like another year or two to really polish it, but then also another couple years after that for like the game to really hit its stride and really start to cut into 2K's market share. So you're looking at a project that could potentially take up to 10 years. And again, I don't know how many people would be willing to actually make the game, and I don't know how many publishers were willing to put forth the money that it'll take for this potentially 10-year project, which can end up being just a maybe kind of game. And the reason I call it a maybe game is because what if all of this stuff does happen, but the game still doesn't end up being as good as 2K? Or even worse, what if history just repeats itself? Because in the early to mid 2000s, EA and Madden had the football game genre on lock, but here comes 2K, the young and up and coming developers, and they make 2K football, and it got to a point where 2K football was just as good, if not better than Madden, and it was cheaper. So then Madden ended up striking a deal with the NFL to have exclusive rights. So they're the only company that can make simulation football game. And this is why no other football games exist, because they nobody can make one. What's really stopping that happening for basketball games? Like what if another company does come out and they make a game just as good, if not better than 2K for the same price, if not cheaper than 2K, and 2K just being like, you know what, I don't really like all this competition, and they just go to the NBA and get exclusive rights to make basketball games. All that time, money, and resources spent to make the game just down the drain. And so those are a couple of the biggest reasons why we don't have any other basketball games. It's too difficult, and to a lot of people, it just ain't worth it.